Hey guys, welcome back to 90.5 FM and HD1 Columbia. This is your DJ Chaiwala today with Brainwaves. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. I don't know if you guys know, but this is a little bit of a news. This is going to be our last required show for the semester. I might be back here and there, you know, check out my Instagram, see sometimes I post on there when I'm on here. But we have a very special guest here today. Rick, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rick Wrigley, and I got my start here in 1963. No, I haven't been at the station that long. I came back to the station part-time in 2007, and then in 2017.
Yes, sir.
And then in 2020, no, that's not correct. 2007 and 2010, I came back full-time doing the Oldies Show on Monday morning. And speaking of the Oldies Show, I got a guest coming in on my show, this Dean. I'm doing a senior moment thing. The Dean of the School of Journalism, Tom Reichert, is going to be sitting in with me from 10:30 for a while, and we'll be talking about that. But the WUSC was actually formed as an AM carrier current station. First went on the air at 640 on the dial, and the carrier current stations were created by the FCC for the purpose of getting people trained in broadcast arts. And the university started picking up and creating these stations. And later on in the 80s, they eliminated the AM stations and the FM stations. The AM stations all became FM stations. So that's kind of our history runs parallel to that. But way back in the day, in 1946, a bunch of students got together and decided that, okay, we're going to do this FCC thing and become radio people. One of them was a fellow by the name of Mackie Quave. Mackie Quave, if any old-time Columbians will know him for sure, Mackie got his start at WSC in 46. He, as a matter of fact, he went and begged copper off of SENG to connect our transmitter to the power lines. So, and the original transmitter and studio were in the old slave quarters behind Rutledge Chapel. Then they moved to Rutledge Chapel, and then when Russell House was built, we moved over here. And then our current FM station, of course, is on top of the Columbia House, Columbia Dormitory. So,
That's very cool.
We moved around a little bit. Yeah. So, you gave me some questions that you thought might be interesting, and one of those questions is, how did where I grew up influence me to be in radio? Well, I tell you, it's funny. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and there were two major influences in Jacksonville, Florida. One was the U.S. Navy, and the second one was a radio station called WAPE. Now, anybody who's been out on the beach in the 70s and 80s remembers the Yape call. And whenever you heard an 8 call, you knew you had to turn over because if you're burning if you're on the beach suntanning. So that was the 8 call. Funny thing, that 8 call actually came from a nervous Norvis record called The 8 Call. But listening to them and another great rocking station down there called WPDQ. We had 600 on the dial. Of course, WAPE was the mighty 690. I often thought about what would it be like to be a DJ, but I didn't really go to pursue that. When I graduated from Bishop Kenny High School in 1963, I had a naval ROTC scholarship up here to the university, and I came up here and started as a chemistry major in the naval ROTC unit. And a lot of you will remember Dean Charles Whitten, the Dean of Students for many, many years here at Carolina. He was my first CO. He was Captain Whitten back in those days. And by the way, he wrote a book when he was in the Navy. It's kind of interesting about a tour through the Middle East and the Suez Canal and all that. It was kind of funny to hear him. His daughter, Jane, wound up being a DJ here at WSC when we switched from AM to FM.
That's cool.
She happened to record the very first FM show.
Wow.
And that show is now on YouTube. Like, I put it up on YouTube on my YouTube channel, and I think I gave a copy of this to the station itself as well. So it was a different kind of radio. WUSC, at my day, when I first came here, was what they called a middle-of-the-road station. They played music that was, a good example, the movie Good Morning Vietnam. The Armed Forces Radio Network was playing some kind of music before Adrian Cronauer came along. And Adrian, he didn't like that. He decided he was going to play rock and roll, so he did the Dawn Patrol show. I actually met Adrian in an airport in D.C., I think.
Really?
Sometime before he passed away. Robin Williams played his character on the movie. But so if you're not familiar with that movie, you ought to go see it or rent it because it's available on video these days. But Robin was quite a character. But anyhow, Adrian was just as funny as Robin. I mean, he was just a hilarious guy. And I told him that we had stolen the name of his show here when we first started doing rock in 1965 with our morning show. And we stole the Dawn Patrol show. Adrian looks at me and says, yeah, you and half the free world stole that name. So he was pretty cool about it. But then, so we played the middle-of-the-road stuff, and then later on we started experimenting with rock in 65. Steve Green, who wound up running a ad agency in Greenville, he and I were the two first rock DJs here on the station. There was another fellow by the name of Rick Amey, who later on, he was in the ROTC unit with me as well. He later on went to doing TV news throughout, I think, St. Louis first and then throughout North Carolina later on. But the station was, well, actually, it was on the second floor of Russell House.
Really?
So we moved down the hall to the third floor. And you're looking at me like, wait a minute, how did that happen?
Yeah.
That move occurred when the Russell House was renovated, and they renumbered the floors. It was ground 1 and 2, and then they changed it to 1, 2, 3, and 4 because they built the fourth one on top. So we moved down the hall from where we were, which is that area that they have just renovated in the lobby. That's where the station was initially. And then we moved down the hall to our current digs at the other end of the hall. It's funny because the West Wing ended, you know where that brick archway is halfway down the hall? That's
right
where that's where the hallway ended.
Oh, really?
And that's where Davis Field started. And Davis Field at the time was a wide open field. There was no trees in the field. There were no reflecting pond. The undergrad library was there, but it was just a big open field between Russell House and the theater.
So this entire area, or that entire area, was just flat in a big old field.
Yeah. And if you look at the patio out here, which we can see out our window, folks, if you want to look out with us, the patio was about half the size it is now. So, and then of course the new medical center wasn't there, and we had a walkway down to the transmitter, which is where the current pay station in the Bull Street garage is where our transmitter was when I got here in 63. So it was interesting. The thing about college radio was really different back then. It was primarily a training ground for the commercial stations. And I think of the guys I was with here, there's probably 10 or 12 that went on to careers in radio and television. A couple of more famous ones would be Hugh Munn, who worked with me here at WUSC. He went on to be the spokesperson for SLED. And then Tom Barry, who was a Tom, Thom Barry, who was the first spokesperson for DHEC, and then when Hugh retired, he became the spokesperson for SLED.
Okay.
And so, and then of course we had a whole bunch of other people. Jay Bender, who taught broadcast law here at the School of Journalism, he was involved. He also worked at WCOS sometime after I worked there. But I'm kind of getting out of sequence here.
That's okay.
So when I started doing the rock radio, I felt like this is what I really wanted to do. So the influence of the rock jocks down at WAPE convinced me that I really wanted to try and do this. So instead of being a jet pilot, I became a rock and roll DJ.
I mean, very similar careers.
Yeah. The rock and roll, you wonder about the longevity of both careers, and neither one of them could have been too long, but I've been very lucky in my life in that I got to do radio and then later on into television. But in 1965, I took a demo tape, real demo tape that I recorded of one of my morning shows, over to Woody Windham at WCOS. He was the program director there. And I thought I didn't have a chance. But I get a call from Woody saying, would you come in and get trained to run board? And he said, would you consider running board? And I said, yeah, for what? And he said, for Bob Fulton's Georgia Tech football. A lot of people know Bob Fulton as the voice of the Gamecocks, but this was a year before he became the voice of the Gamecocks in 65. Really? He did his final year of 2 years doing Georgia Tech. He also, way back in his career, did Mutual Network's Game of the Day with Dizzy Dean and those guys out there in the Midwest. So the big sports, all the old folks will remember who these guys are. But so Bob was doing the morning show at WCOS and was doing Georgia Tech football. And then he eventually left WCOS to take over and do Carolina football in '66. So he was. I actually had a chance to work with Bob later on in the late '70s when I was the chief engineer at WIS Radio, and he was, of course, doing the first year that Tommy Suggs was doing, and Tommy's still doing the color. Bob was doing the play-by-play, Tommy was doing the color, and I was doing the engineering and producing. So I got to travel along to all the different places. By the way, folks, in case you want to know, it's true for the old ACC, and I believe it's true for the old SEC, that the University of South Carolina press box victuals, the lunch they have for the press up there, is the best in the conference.
Really?
So number one in the conference. Yeah, get yourself some chicken wings.
Hey, at least we're number one.
Yeah, number one is, well, they're actually number one in a couple things. Basketball, women's basketball.
We've been doing great lately.
And the equestrian team. Yeah.
I haven't heard about that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're big.
Really?
Yeah. So anyhow, it's so I've been kind of tied up with the university one way or another in my entire career. So I started doing weekend work at WCOS. That was the next time. And at one point, we had an old monaural audio console, 2-channel monaural audio console. It's called a Western Electric B25. If people know those things, you can look it up on Facebook or do a Google search for Western Electric B25, and you'll see some pictures of it. It had rotary knobs on it. Oh. Yeah, so all the boards here did. Anyhow, on Sunday nights in WCOS, I would be doing a top 40 show on the A channel, and at the same time, I'd be on the air on the FM channel doing classical music. Now, you know something's going to happen there. So one time I came out of a record on the A channel, flipped it over to the B channel, and said, "Yeah, we're rocking tonight." And the owner, George Buck, called me up on the line and said, "I'd like to hear we're rocking tonight, but I don't want to hear it on FM." So some funny things happen sometimes with doing that. But I went on to wind up doing the all-night satellite show from 1 to 6 in the morning. WCOS was the only radio station on the air in Columbia at the time. So it was either me or listening to the high-powered stations up in New York or Chicago, Nashville. And there was one in New Orleans, too, WWL. So it was. I really loved that shift because I got everybody, and I had people calling in wanting to hear country songs. I would hear people wanting to hear R&B. The top 40 back then was very much more diverse than it is today. It had elements of what they call good music. I mean, Lawrence Welk, for all people, had a top 10, a number one song in 1961 called Calcutta. And so I know that a lot of folks, even if they're younger, they'll remember their grandpa parents listening or watching Lawrence Welk on the afternoons. But that was a good time. And then in '67, late '67, they moved me from the all night show to the Doug Broom's Night show. Now this was a hoot. The Doug Broom's Night Beat show was a remote broadcast. We remotely broadcast every night, Monday through Saturday.
Okay.
From Doug Broom's restaurant. He had two in Columbia. Actually, had three. He had one on Hardin Street, then one on Main and Confederate, and then late '60 he closed the one on Hardin Street and opened up one on Two Notch at Beltline. And that's where I was doing my show. Now, our announce booth was a cinder block building about as big as this studio.
Oof.
It had 4x8 windows on three sides, and on the back side we had a door and an air conditioner. And it was right down on the parking lot, right next to the first row of teletrays where people would come in and request their foods. And the idea is that they would bring in requests on written down on it. Most of the time it's usually on a napkin, sometimes with or without the ketchup and mustard stains, but it was there. And we played the requests. And people who listen to my show today know that I take a lot of requests. As a matter of fact, last Monday, I think I set a new milestone for here. I did 24 requests in 2 hours.
Really?
Yeah, 24.
That's huge.
It is huge. That's the kind of level of requests we had out of Doug's. So it wasn't too unknown to me. But I was like, really, and I'm an old school DJ. I live for taking requests and announcing people's names on the air and stuff like that, Sometimes funny things happen. Now, it was 68. I was out there, and I looked up, and a guy rode right in front of my window in front of me. So he's maybe 8 feet away from me, but there's a window and an audio console between me and him. He's on a Harley. And he's got a German helmet on with a spike on the top and a jacket on. As he came around the corner, I could see the name Hell's Angels on the jacket. This was right after the incident where the Hells Angels actually murdered somebody as security for a Rolling Stones concert. So I was like, uh-oh. And I looked back over at Arthur Broom, who was the fellow in the manager of the restaurant. And he was in the main building. He noticed these guys were rolling in. And I saw him pick up the phone. And I knew what he was doing. He was calling the police just in case there was going to be trouble. Well, the next thing I know, this guy comes by me again, but there's 2 of them this time. And then I hear him roll around behind me, and I come back again. Now there's 4. Eventually, it got up to like 32 people rolling past me, and I said, this is going to be very interesting. So I kind of steeled myself. I heard them all come up and park around my car behind the studio where I couldn't see anything. And I heard a knock on the door, and I said, I better just go find out what these guys want. And I opened up the back door, and there they are in their leathers. The old ladies are with them and all this kind of stuff. And the leader says, play this. And he hands me a napkin with mustard and ketchup and a request. And it was for Steppenwolf's Born to be Wild, which is the quincentennial motorcycle song from the late 1960s. I thought, this is so trite, but it's so true. So that was a lot of fun. In 1969 and 1970, I transitioned from radio to television. Because, quite frankly, radio wasn't paying a lot, and television was paying a little bit better. And I moved into the engineering department of Channel 10 and started doing stuff with them. And one of the things that happened was in 1973, the chief engineer, Joe Gill, called me into his office and said, you really need to go back to school and get your engineering degree. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, we'll help you out, with hours and stuff like that, whatever you need. So I agreed to do that. I came back to school in engineering. Now, I could only take one course at a time, which would have been normally a disqualifier because the catalog today, you can only do it for 10 years and then you have to do it all over again. Yeah. Back then, that rule didn't exist. So I stayed on the 1973 catalog all the way to the year 1992. When I graduated with a degree in electrical and computer engineering. My last 2 courses that I needed to take on the catalog were no longer available. So I talked to my advisor, Dr. Simpson, and said, what do you suggest? He said, take a couple of graduate seminars. So I wound up in 1992 taking graduate seminars in artificial intelligence, of all things. So I was back in the foundation of that. And that's kind of my career oversaw or was involved in a lot of technology changes. And one of the first technology change was in 1974 when we went with a brand new slide pod audio board manufactured by Audio Designs and Manufacturing. And I got to design the layout of that board because I had audio experience. And it had slide pods similar to it had 24 pods on it, and this one's got 12, if I remember correct, 16. So it was kind of an interesting experience designing that board, what module goes where and all that kind of stuff. In 1975, WIS television was in a big push to be the first to do a live show with a minicam, which is very commonly used today, with a minicam. And we were in a big rush trying to beat out a Greenville television station to do that. Huh. And we were going to win because we got our camera early. And the problem was that our microwave vendor had a production run problem, and they were not going to be able to supply us our microwave in time. Oh. So they were going to beat us. And Joe Gill says, I'll be darned. So what we did is we went and got the microwave unit off the top of the Carolina Coliseum that we used to broadcast Carolina basketball, which we did back in the days during the McGuire era. We brought it up, and I took it and went down to the sheriff's office, which was down in those days on UG Street, down the bottom of the Vista. And the idea was we were going to do an interview with Frank Powell, the sheriff, and talk about whatever Frank wanted to talk about. Frank really loved being on the television, so he was all about it. So me and one of our other operators, Kathy Malone, went down there with the equipment to set up and do a broadcast from down there. Problem was we couldn't get a shot from down there because it was so far down in the Vista we couldn't get over the buildings to the tower at 1111 Bull Street. So the sheriff said, well, why don't you try the top of the office here? We went up there, and no, we couldn't do it. So we were almost beaten, and Kathy and I were sitting on the steps of the sheriff's office, and she looked up at the jail and said, I bet we can get off the top of the jail. We asked Frank. He said, yeah, that probably would work. But she can't help you because there's no way to get to the top of the jail without going into general population. And you're not going to let a woman go into general population, So they got me a couple of trustees, and we lugged everything up to the roof when we did the shot. Tom Fowler was our reporter on the scene. Our news director was a fellow by the name of Joe Petty, and he later on became the sports director at Channel 10. So we did the shot, and by having set up at 3 different times to do the shot, Kathy and I were beat. And I still had the rest of my shift. We got back to the station around maybe 9:30 or so. We were going to go back out the next day, so I left all the gear in the truck and parked the truck in a secure area and crashed on the couch. And Joe Gill, our chief engineer, says, "Get dressed up. We're going to be." No, he said, "We need for you to set up and do another live shot." And I said, "From where?" He said, "From the front steps of the station." And I said, "Yeah, we can do that, but I can never get a microwave shot from there because the angle's just wrong. You can't shoot up that high." So we ran a cable in, and I'm laying on the couch, just waiting for this newscast to come and go so I can get her put everything up. And at that point, Joe Petty walks in and says, "Get dressed. I know you're dirty, you're hot and sweaty, but clean up as much as you can." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because we're interviewing you for being the engineer on the first ENG shot in South Carolina during a live show." So that week, the Tuesday of that week, we did the Chamber of Commerce from the old Columbia Hotel. We did a shot from there. Wade Hampton Hotel. Columbia was gone by that time. Wade Hampton Hotel. On Wednesday, we did on Wednesday, we did Joe Penner from the Weather Bureau. We did a live shot from the Weather Bureau. On Thursday, we took the night off. On Friday, we did a sportscast with Jim Forrest, our sports director, from Harry Perone Stadium, which is out at the Richland Northeast. No, not what is the high school out there? Not Northeast. It's the other high school.
Keenan? No,
the other, further out.
Is it up north? Or
northeast.
Northeast.
I'm having. Sorry,
Westwood?
folks.
Blythewood?
No, not that far. It's
Dreer?
No, that's too close. Harry Perone Stadium. It'll come to me eventually. But we did a shot from there, and then when I got back to the station that afternoon or that evening, they said, "Okay, I want you to meet our assignment editor here at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We're going to go out and do a stand-up at the end of the Carolina-Clemson football game, which is being played at Carolina Stadium." So I said, "Okay." So I go up at the station, and our assignment editor forgot that he was going to meet me at the station. I didn't have any credentials at all. So he didn't show up. And finally, I hear from him, and he said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm at the station." And I said, I'm waiting for my credentials. He said, oh, no. He said, well, yeah, you come out here, and maybe I can get down and get your credentials to you. So I load up this van, and it's a unmarked van. It's a rental van, and it's all cameras and tripods and microwaves and all this stuff in it. And I get to the stadium, and there's a guard standing next to the elevators that go up to the press box. And he said, what you got there in that truck? And I said, well, I got the minicam. Oh, I've been seeing this minicam all over. Yeah, this is cool. And I said, well, I got a big favor to ask of you. I said, can I go up, take the elevator up and get my press credentials and use the elevator to carry gear up there? He said, no, man. You can drive your truck up the ramp and park right behind the deck. So that was the easiest of all those shots we did. Funny thing is, during the game, after I got everything set up, I left the camera on, the microwave on, sending back to the station, just video, just to have it on a channel on the air. So I went back and got some chicken wings and stuff from the press box. And I came back out to the camera and I said, well, I'm not going to be a camera shooter. I'm not going to be a cameraman, but I got to work on this thing, so maybe I ought to understand what kind of problems it could present. So I just started shooting a one-camera shot of the football game. And I did this for about 5 minutes. I hear Jim Forrest come up on the radio and said, don't stop doing what you're doing. And I said, fine. So I shot the end of the game, one camera from there, and we did the stand-up and came back to the station. And when I got back in the station, I see what Jim Forrest had done is record my video, and he was editing it on 2-inch machines because we didn't have the ability to edit the video yet on 1-inch machines. We were editing on 2-inch machines. And so we actually had video of the football game at the 7 o'clock report, which is as early as we could ever do it, because on film, you couldn't get the film processed, edited from a 1 o'clock game to a 7 o'clock newscast. So we did that. So we became the first station to actually air video in a sportscast of a football game.
Really?
Now, come along to the 1990s, and there's a fellow working at WIS who was his name was Drew Stewart. He was an ex-WCOS DJ named Texas Pete, and he was working at Channel 10, and he was putting together vignettes about big events in Carolina Clemson history, and that game was the game that we beat Clemson the worst we've ever beat them. So he put this thing together, and they aired it, and I didn't see it air because I was doing something, but then he threw it up on YouTube, and I caught it on YouTube, and when I realized what he had done, he was using the video I shot of that game in the YouTube thing in the 90s. So that thing is still there. Just look up Carolina Clemson 1975, and you'll see that video. Jim Carlin was the coach at the time, and it was... So it's a lot of kind of history, tied up there.
Well, thank you for all the insight. We'll take a quick break and go into some PSAs. And everybody who's listening in, this is 90.5 FM. Please keep listening in to this short break, and we'll be right back with you.
Hi, I'm Frank. The pedestrian you passed back there? You didn't even notice me. But why should you? Well, I could pop out in front of you when you least expect it. It could be a kid chasing a dog. Of course, I try to be safe. I use crosswalks, look both ways, and make eye contact with drivers. But either of us could make a mistake. So let's, look out for each other.
A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. For more information, visit AAOS.org.
Mom, I drew you a picture of Dad. This is his jacket, and these are his shoes.
Later, Molly.
Mama, I drew you a picture of Daddy. This is his jacket, and these are his shoes. Mama, I made it for you.
If our kids' words are set to music, maybe we'd listen a little closer. This is Tim McGraw reminding you to tune into your kids. A message from the Country Music Association and the Advertising Council. Visit us at tuneintokids.com.
Hey, Sal. Salmonella.
Yeah?
Why are we climbing up this lunch bag?
Because Arnie, it is here.
I suppose. Besides, us germs is always finding food to contaminate when people who fix lunches don't wash their utensils and their hands.
Yeah, or have cuts or sores on their little hands.
Think I'll tackle this sandwich. Ow! My my tooth. What the...
Yeah, Arnie. Someone's found out from the U.S. Department of Agriculture that you can freeze lunch meat sandwiches ahead. They defrost in time for lunch, but too late for us germs to benefit.
I got it, Sal. The vacuum bottle. People never clean them out well enough. Except this one.
Hey, look out!
Ah! Boiling hot soup. A germ's downfall.
Yeah, come on, let's go. Somewhere there's someone careless who's fixing lunches.
Yeah?
We're gonna find him, and somebody's gonna be sorry.
Hey guys, welcome back to 90.5 FM. If you guys are just tuning in, we have a special guest here, Mr. Rick. Say hi.
Hey.
Hey, this is DJ Chaiwala with Brainwaves. We were talking about Mr. Rick, about his extended career throughout media over the last however many
62 years since I first got my start here.
Very cool.
Now, it's not all been media. I did some state government work and some work in the private sector for a couple of years, but most of it was doing this kind of stuff. Which reminds me, in 1976, I got promoted from a studio engineer at WIS Television to the chief engineer of WIS Radio.
Really?
And this is where I reconnected with Bob Fulton because as part of that, I became part of the broadcast team for the Game Park Football Network, part of my duties there.
Nice.
But so I went out there, and it was that was a little bit of a different experience. It was my second experience with automation systems. My first one with a computer-controlled automation system. It was done by a company called IGM, International Good Music, and it consisted of a DEC PDP-8M and a bunch of things called Instacarts. And these were a big machine, a big matrix of a machine that held 64 cartridges in one machine, and the automation would play them according to what was in the log. So.
Very
and
cool.
we were not on an automated station. We used it as a DJ assist. That was a great system, and it was the worst experience I ever had in my life trying to run something because WIS Television has three 440-foot tall, radio, had three 440-foot tall antennas out there, and they're still out there at WVOC's site now. And those antennas in the summertime just attracted lightning like you would not believe. Well, the transmitter was rugged, but those cart machines, they'd blow out components, and I'd be constantly trying to fix those machines. And, as a matter of fact, it got so bad that one of our DJs called the automation system Bozo. So it was kind of experience. At that point, another innovation came along, and that was a thing called Marty systems. Now, Marty systems for radio allowed us to have studio quality broadcasts over VHF radio back to the station, so we can go out and do a broadcast from wherever we wanted to do, similar to what we were doing with the microwave and the minicams in the early 70s. So we did. We got that in, and it gave me an opportunity to ride the elevator up to the top of the tall tower in Kershaw County, a little over 1,000 feet up. And people don't realize this. Even in light winds, those towers sway in a figure eight, and it was doing about an 8-foot figure eight up there with me up there going, oh, yeah, baby, ride, baby, ride. I also, back in the early 70s, had an opportunity to climb the tower downtown, which I went up to the 400-foot level there in an ice storm to realign that microwave receiver to receive, because we were going to do a basketball game that night, and the winds blew the receiver off, so I had to climb up there. This is way before OSHA, by the way, so don't worry about that. In street shoes and clothes and all that kind of stuff. I was young and immortal. What can I say? So we did the Marty. We did the first anniversary of the zoo, which kind of an interesting experience. I was setting up at 5 o'clock in the morning for our morning show.
The Riverbank Zoo?
Riverbank Zoo. It's
really?
first anniversary.
Nice.
There was only two people on the grounds, me and the guard. And the guard, it was in a little shack in the location where the current main entrance is to the zoo. The main entrance used to be at the north end of the zoo, but now it's where the guard shack was. And I was lugging stuff in and setting up cables and microphones and everything. And I got the feeling I was being watched. And I was kind of like, it was the eeriest feeling. I said, what is going on? And I went to the guard and said, is there anybody here but you and me? And he laughed. He said, just you and me and the flamingos. And he pointed at the flamingos, and they were watching everything I did. They were just right there. All their heads were turning. What is he doing? He said, they do that to everybody. So, spooky flamingos. So that was interesting remarks. And, of course, we had G. McKay, Bill Benton, and Dave Wright. And those guys were on the air back then. And shortly after that, they left and went to WSCQ and formed that station there. So I stayed with WIS radio through 79 and then left to go over to ETV, back into television. And the innovation that came along there was the advent of computer-controlled cameras. Television cameras would take as much as a half hour to set up correctly because you have to get the registration, the color alignment, all that up. The digital stuff we have today is much easier. You just shoot and go. Yeah. But back then you had, half-hour setup, and the cameras would drift, so you have to have them on for a half an hour before you do setup. Well, in 84, 85, we started getting the computer control cameras. You flip them on, punch a button, and they were there. So it was a lot better. So we were doing all kinds of remotes and different things there. I did a remote one time from what is now the old Columbia Mall, where I actually drove the remote truck into the mall in order to do the remote. We did a whole bunch of them down in Charleston, and we did them all over the place. And I got involved during that time. I moved from the television engineering to managing the computer department at ETV. While that same time, I had done a couple of firing line shows with William F. Buckley, which was produced by South Carolina Educational Television. And in particular, I was involved in the 2-hour debate programs he did. We had people like Henry Kissinger and John Kenneth Galbraith and all kinds of people on these interviews. As a matter of fact, we did one which turned out to be one of the initial interviews that became part of the Republican-Democratic debates on television. Now, this is the inter-party, not the across-party debates, but parties among themselves. And we did one from the theater right here on the other side of... Can't remember that.
Street Theater?
Longstreet Theater, yeah. We did a couple there where Ronald Reagan was there and Henry Kissinger was in that one. And after that show, I got a call from our president, Henry Coffin. He said, "Can you come up to my office for a minute?" And I came up there, and he introduces me to William F. Buckley, who I had met the day before. And he said, "We got a bit of a problem, and all these high-powered politicians are claiming they're not getting equal time. And we need some way to let them know they're getting equal time." He said, I don't know what an idea is, but I think maybe you can come up with something. I said, I got an idea. Let's take a computer and build a clock on it, a countdown clock, a digital clock, and run it out to monitors on the stage so everybody can now see they got the same time. So he said, well, yeah, go back and let's see if we can do that. I got Dave Kurlowich to actually write the assembly code for it, and then we turned around and built the monitor. And the next week I told Henry that the monitor was it's working, and he said, well, Henry Buckley's coming back into town tomorrow. Bring it up here and show it to him. So I came up and demonstrated it, and so I said, and Buckley said, yeah, that'll do it. But I want you to run the clock for all my shows, just not the regular half-hour show, but the 2-hour shows, all my debates. I want you running the clock for it. So I wound up running the clock for the 2-hour debates all the way up until Buckley retired from PBS in 1999. So I got to see a lot of places: Bard College, Washington University, a couple of colleges out there in Dallas, including the Horned Frogs. They were out there too. So I got to do a lot of traveling, and during that time I actually met Adrian Cronauer at an airport in Washington. So that's how that happened. But I wound up doing that through then. The last one we did was 1999 from Cooper Union in downtown New York City, and we did it from the stage where the Lincoln Douglas debates came from. So that's a very revered space. And it's interesting space to do television from because there's very low ceilings, so lighting was an issue. So we did that, and it was it was pretty good. So in 2000, I was working at a couple of other state agencies and computer jobs, and just doing the TV for ETV and the Firing Line show. In 2000, when Buckley retired, I decided to leave state government and go into the private sector, and went out to work for a company called ADP, Automatic Data Processing. That is quite the company in that they are a Fortune 100 company. Actually, they're a Fortune 50 company that actually writes 1 out of every 6 paychecks in this country.
Really?
They actually produce the printed paychecks or the money transfers into the payees' accounts. That's their stuff. And I was running projects for them in Fortune 100 companies all over the country. So I had an office in Seattle, Washington. I had one in San Diego. I had one in Los Angeles. I had one in Houston. Had one in Alpharetta, Georgia. Let's see. I also had one in Hicksville, New York. Ann Arbor, Michigan. And a couple places in Jersey. So it was. I got to see a lot of the country, but I was gone all the time. So I closed out my career in data processing, doing a couple of consulting jobs for Blue Cross Blue Shield and the South Carolina State Election Commission here in Columbia. So that's when I closed. The year I started doing the consulting with the Election Commission was 2010. Now, I had gotten back involved with WUSC in 2007 through an alumni association meeting where I ran into a fellow by the name of DJ Gamecock. And he was, I think it was, excuse me, I think in the early 80s he was a DJ here. And he was involved in a thing called internet radio. So he got me involved. He was trying to do a broadcast from the old Wig bar down there on Main Street, Main and Gervais. But we couldn't get a Wi-Fi signal out of there, so we weren't able to do the show. But he showed me the software and everything. He said, "You really ought to join my station." So I did. It was Radio Rex, and it was out of Los Angeles. But it had a worldwide audience because it was on the Internet. And at the same time, I was doing shows here during semester breaks, like the fall break and the winter break and the spring break and the summer break. So I do shows 4 times a year. In 2010, the then director of Garnet Media asked me if I would take on doing a show permanently. And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, the problem we have with college radio is that the same DJ is never going to be on more than a semester mark at the same time. It's always changing. So we feel like we want to build some anchors." So we had 4 or 5 alumni DJs or staff DJs. I took over doing the show I'm doing now, which was it was called 50s, 60s, and Blues back in those days, but it was now the Backbeat Show from 10 to noon on Mondays. I started that in January of 2010. And we had Claire de Lune on Tuesday nights at 6 doing the Blues Moon Show, and we had the Goth Show on Saturday nights. I think it was Saturday nights when that show was on, and we had a couple of other shows. So they became the anchors. Those shows never changed. And as we got into the around 2012, they said, "You know, something that's missing from this city is oldies." And I said, "Oh man, I can do oldies." And he said, I said, "But," and the rule at the time was nothing newer than 40 years ago. Nothing was on the top 40, anything up to the past 40 years. And it was only the top 40 Billboard Hot 100 back in those days. And so that was my original restriction. And it still is my restriction today, with the exception of the fact that I don't do Beatles, Aretha, or Rolling Stones, because they still get a lot of airplay now. But the other artists I do, for the most part, don't get airplay today. So it brings back those artists of that day doing radio the way it was done in those days, and that is high energy, jingles, in and out, no blocks. You know, we do the 3-record blocks here at WSC now. That you see that everywhere. You see that on commercial radio. You see that on XM radio. You see it everywhere. But I went back to doing it the 50s and 60s styles with a high energy. And Woody Wyndham once told me, if you don't say something or play a station jingle between any 2 songs, I will fire you. So you can imagine how different that was. So that's the way I do my show now. You'll never hear 2 songs segue back to back.
Mm-hmm.
But you will hear either me or a jingle or a quick liner or something like that in the meantime. So
I wish we could have a soundboard in here.
Well, actually, I also have another exemption, is I can use my computer in here.
Oh, nice.
So that place up there in the rack that's open, the copy rack, it goes up there, and I plug into the device here.
Nice.
So because I could not do this show without it. For one reason, when I'm taking requests, I'm taking requests over a 30-year period. I said, no way I'm going to find a song if I have to find a physical song, if I get a request. But on my computer, my playback software also has a database in it. So I can do a search by artist, I can do a search by all or part of the song name, and find the song pretty quickly, so if somebody requests a song. And like I think I said earlier, I did a milestone this past week in that I did 24 songs, 24 requests in a 2-hour period. And like I said, that took me all the way back to my Doug Brooms days, taking requests on napkins covered with chocolate and stuff. Those were good days. The other good thing about doing those shows back in the day is they brought us food.
Really?
Yeah. Every night
station?
I'd sit down and probably within 15 minutes, one of the car hops, and they had car hops on roller skates back in those days. She would come knock on the door and bring me a Big Joy hamburger, fries, a chocolate shake, and a Diet Pepsi, or actually a regular Pepsi. So that, and come around 11 o'clock, she would bring me in a strawberry pie and another piece of Pepsi. So
very cool.
And of course, every now and then the waitress in the A&W next door would sneak over an A&W root beer float. So that's how I went from being a skinny DJ here at WSC to being the guy I am today.
Well, I think you still look great for it.
Well, thank you. For an 80-year-old dude. But, I really appreciate the station allowing me to do radio. And, of course, what happened with the rules, we decided to keep the 40-year rule. So that means today I could actually be playing something in the 80s, but I don't consider the 80s to be the oldies period. I consider 50s, 60s, and 70s. Now, I know there's people out there who say, classic rock 80s. Yeah, well, that's classic rock. That's not oldies. That's different. So that's the difference there is that I don't play anything from the 80s. I don't play Beatles, Aretha, or Rolling Stone, except during Pledge Week. And I've been known to play Beyonce during Pledge Week. And I guess that was Jolene. Yeah. Which I think Beyonce's Jolene is pretty cool because she's not taking any guff off of Jolene on that song at all. Whereas Dolly's version did. And there was another cover of that. Miley Cyrus did a cover of Jolene.
Really?
That's just incredible. Yeah, look it up on the internet.
I've never heard of that.
And I hear she's engaged now.
Really? I did not know that either.
Bad girl Miley Cyrus, twerking and everything. I do hear occasionally from oldies artists. I keep in touch with a lot of them. And I have a YouTube channel with those interviews that I did with some of those oldies artists. Jimmy Clanton comes to mind. And one important thing, you may have heard a reference to the day the music died. Have you ever heard that phrase?
I don't think so.
It's not so much in use today, but throughout most of rock and roll history, the day the music died was February 3rd, 1959. There was a concert series going on in Clear Lake, Iowa, with Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, and Buddy Holly on one stage. And the other stage was doing a whole bunch of other people, including the other artists they had out there. But Jimmy Clanton was on the other side. Well, what happens? They got into an airplane. The radiator on their bus had broken, and Tommy also had gotten frostbite and was in the hospital for a while. And,
oh man!
And Buddy Holly decided, I am just not going to put up with this. We're going to rent an airplane and fly to the next venue and sleep in a hotel tonight. So they. At 2 o'clock in the morning, got aboard this airplane and crashed in a snowstorm, killing all three artists. And that became the day the music died. You hear that reference in all kinds of songs, sampled and stuff like that throughout all music, even up to today. But Jimmy was on the other thing, other side of that. And they called him and asked him to come change to the other side and finish out the tour where the three people were killed. And he agreed to do that. And I asked Jimmy on air live, and I said, what was that like? He said, well, the kids all wanted to be there. The places were packed, but there was no fun. Nobody wanted to have fun because it's the three guys that died. I asked him, he said, well, I know that artists get their energy from the audience. He said, what was it like? And he said, it's the hardest thing I ever did. So Jimmy's still alive today, as a matter of fact. He lives up in Pennsylvania.
Really?
Yeah. So those, and I'll never forget my first celebrity interview was a fellow by the name of Johnny Mathis. He just retired at the age of 91, I think.
Oh, man.
This past summer. But he did a thing. He was a ballad singer. He was a great ballad singer. Everybody loved him. My favorite DJ, of course, I liked all the big DJs, Wolfman Jack and Cousin Brucey and all of them. And, of course, the guys down in Jacksonville. But there was a fellow named Art LeBeau who started in San Francisco during the Second World War doing jazz on a station there. He was in the Navy. He had a first phone ticket, so he was the station hired him to run overnights doing jazz. He stayed in radio after leaving the Navy after the Second World War. Did his last show last year at the age of 97 and passed away the day after. That's my hero. So, yeah.
Certainly admirable.
Yeah, he's quite a guy. So that's pretty it.
Do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to pass on?
Just my eternal gratitude for the station to allow me to continue keeping the oldies alive, and my audience, which is not insignificant, is enjoying that as well. So, and it's not just here in Columbia. I get requests from all over the world. I even got one a couple of days ago from Moscow.
Really?
Yeah, of all places.
Very cool.
It wasn't Vladimir either.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
If anybody wants to listen into Rick, he does have a show Mondays. What time?
From 10 until noon.
Yep.
It's called The Backbeat Show, and it's radio done old school style. It's like something you don't hear anywhere else here on WSC.
It is very fun. I do listen to it a lot.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. Well, thank you, everybody. That's it for me today. This is your DJ Chaiwala tuning in from 90.5 FM and HD1 Columbia. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.
Support for this station comes from the Hideout Cafe in West Columbia, which will be hosting a cookie decorating class on December 13th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. More details can be found at the Hideout Cafe's social media.